Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your pastor, your host, on this wonderful program, National Matters. And I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity. And in the studio, my guest is Professor MUNKUMBA, Dynamite. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Pastor.
And we are a family, and being a family, out there, some have known you, some haven't. I would want you to run me through your school background and so far what you have achieved by the special grace of God, just under 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor, and good evening, viewers. As Pastor has already mentioned, my name is Michael MUNKUMBA. I'm a professor in management. The schools that I've gone to started as far back as 1967. That's how far back we go, 7 years after independence. Up to 1973, that was at Kapopo School in Mungule area. From there, I went to Mukushi Secondary School up to 1978, so 1974 to 1978. And of course, that time we had compulsory national service. So went off to Kasama for military training, and then to Mongu, Lukalanya National Service, and then to Mumbwa Big Concession. Left that place, of course, halfway, because if you passed well, you went to university, then you were given an exemption from the rest of national service. So went to the University of Zambia at Ndora campus, 1979 to 1983. And during those times, I worked during long breaks for Bank of Zambia and Barclays Bank.
But you were studying, what were you studying?
I was studying Bachelor of Accountancy degree. 1983, graduated and joined Indeco Central at Indeco House. Worked there as a management and systems auditor for 1 year. Then they sent me to London School of Accountancy to do ACCA. So 1984, 85, 86, 87, I came back to Zambia, and Indeco sent me off to Zambia Sugar and Dollar Refinery as a refinery accountant. Worked there for a year, and I switched over to Deloitte & Touche as Assistant Financial Controller and Senior Auditor. Worked in Dollar, transferred to Kitwe, worked in Kitwe, then I left Deloitte and went to Zambia Airways as Revenue Accountant, and then promoted to General Manager for Revenues. For about 2.5 years, then I left Zambia and went to Tanzania to work for ESAMI, Eastern and Southern African Management Institute. And I went there as a chief accountant, became finance manager, and then I switched over to training, so became a consultant, senior consultant, principal consultant, chief consultant. Then they sent me for training in Kenya, American University, did an MBA, came back, did a PhD with Washington, worked on for some time, then did a Master of Philosophy in mining area, how to manage the mines, especially conflicts in the mining area, with Maastricht School of Management in Holland, Netherlands. And also did the Doctor of Business Administration with the same people, funded by the Dutch government. Then I finished that and set off on a law degree with the Open University of Tanzania. And okay, I haven't finished that one because I had to switch off to do something else. And currently I'm doing a postdoctoral degree with URACA in Switzerland, where I'm also a professor at URACA, part-time professor with URACA, and I'm also a part-time doctoral supervisor with Swiss School of Management in Holland.
Swiss
School of Management, yes. And of course, I worked for ESAMI for like 29 years, living as the head of the business school, an international business school, which was really global. People came from all over the world, and I was the head of that business school. And I came back home and set up Mihachi Group in Tanzania and in Zambia, where I am the executive director, and we do training in management, leadership, governance, and we also do consultancies in strategy, change management, everything to do with management. Yes, sir.
In short, Professor, how many papers have you got? I am interested and I have a reason for asking you that.
Okay, in terms of degrees and degree equivalents, we can say bachelor level, 2 degrees and degree equivalents. So 2, masters 2, doctorates 2, incomplete 2. Now these are academics, because then there are non-academics like diplomas, I've lost count, and certificates I've lost count. Yeah, so many. So in terms of completed, you would say 2 bachelors, 2 masters, 2 doctorates, and 2 incomplete degrees.
Oh. Professor, I asked you this not because I don't know what is behind your jacket.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you. I always say that the reason why countries fail, it's because we do not make qualified people as our friends. Always in leadership of the country especially, you find that the more notable people and who are likely to be appointed in offices are those who are politically oriented, who can dance to certain tunes, political songs, who can mobilize people at short notice from Chiboli and Jonawad, where I come from. Such people, they stand a chance of getting a position. But academicians like yourselves, not only here in Zambia, but around Africa, you are not friends of leadership. I say this again. One thing I've admired about our friends, the developed world, they put emphasis on education and research.
Correct.
Anything you want to go into, they will find qualified people.
Yes.
Here you are. Maybe you were too fast, but let me brief the nation that you have trained permanent secretaries from Zambia. How many? 3, 4?
Put it this way, Pastor. I have even trained cabinets, like the cabinet of Uganda, or the members of parliament, like the cabinet of Swaziland, one time now Eswatini, or the permanent secretaries in Tanzania, in Uganda again, in Tanzania, in Zambia, or even the National Assembly of Nigeria. I went there to train people. In Zambia, I think some 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years, we trained about 600 directors and permanent secretaries. We even trained all the PSs at one time together with Dr. Roland Msiska then as the Secretary of Cabinet, in Livingstone. So all the PSs. So that is for government, but you can go into quasi-governments literally across Africa, all the heads, all the board members. I can't even begin to enumerate how many. And the point you make about using qualified people, a country like Singapore, their first Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew had a policy. He said, look for the best brains in the country and put them to work, both in government and outside of government. Your best people should be the ones that are running affairs. And also to make leadership unattractive to the immoral guys, or let's say amoral guys, people who have no integrity. Make it unattractive to them, but make it attractive to people of integrity, which means you don't necessarily make those positions so lucrative, because when you make them too lucrative, then you attract the wrong guys, and the wrong guys will fight tooth and nail unscrupulously to get to the top. The good ones are not prepared to go into the mud and dirty themselves to go and serve people, so they will keep out. So who you get in the ring are the wrong guys, who they know outside of that ring they can't achieve anything, so they will fight to get in there. They are not fighting to serve, they are fighting to gain. So make it attractive to people of integrity who just want to serve others. but make it unattractive to thieves, to the corrupt, to who, just the way honey or honey badgers are attracted to a honeycomb, or thieves are attracted to a bank because there's money in there, so they want to rob it. Don't make it that lucrative. Now, of course, don't impoverish. You see, during KK's time, the problem is that government workers drove the West cars, they had the West offices. You don't want to do that. But when we switched, we went to another extreme. If you're in government, you're a VX8, you drive cars that the private sector guys at your level don't drive. Now you attract the wrong guys. So make it livable, but also make it very hard for people who have wrong motives to fight to get there. Leave it to people who are qualified and they are willing to see their country develop. So there is also that. I just wanted to chip in on your point.
Because people like yourselves, I look at one of the institutions, people like Dr. Karialia, who is the Bank of Zambia governor.
Correct.
He needs friends like you. The president himself, HH, is building this nation. He needs people like you. Because once you take just 7 people to run this country, you risk going down.
Yes.
But when you talk about countries like America, Singapore, and everything, you see they invest so much in research.
Correct.
They invest so much in academics.
Correct.
Such that you are able to guide the nation. I have said this, Professor. My wife and I are very passionate about this nation. I want to live long and see Zambia go to standards of the other countries we have visited.
Correct.
When I go in New York, I go in England, I go, you know that we have traveled around the world. But when I see, what is it that these guys have, which we don't have? What is it that they make, which we don't have? I just discover that the difference is in the brain. It's in the brain. Once you start rewarding people because they belong to your party, you start rewarding people because they know how to dance. And this has been a problem, Professor MUNKUMBA, from UNIP days. I can tell you that. I've walked in these corridors of power for a long time with the same lawmakers from UNIP days. Show me any government in Zambia that did not have political rewards and crowns for certain people who can insult the most or intimidate the people.
Yes.
You find there will always be a political crown on the shelf for such people. But when it comes to people with brains who can sort out a problem, I think there we need God to come through in this nation.
Pastor, you are in charge of Cabinet Stars. Cabinet Stars. What motivates the coaches to set up a certain team to play another is because of the objective that they want to achieve.
Absolutely.
So they look at the other team and they think, if we put this defender, we'll lose. We need that other defender. The goal is to win. And it's that goal which dictates the kind of team you put together. So for a government, and indeed all the way from KK, and this is a disease for most of our countries, it's a failure to have an all-consuming vision for a country. Because if you have a strong, robust vision, it then dictates, and you are focused on achieving it, it dictates what else you will do now. If there isn't that focus on a goal or a vision, then anything is okay. That's why they say if you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. Because anything is good. So the lack of a vision, and Mwana Wasa came and gave us Vision 2030. But I think we discussed this last time. The way the Kenyans did it was to set up also their own Vision 2030, but they set up a secretariat. It's called the Vision 2030 Secretariat. Each successive government cannot do anything outside of that vision. Everything is laid out, the 3 pillars that they must follow, the objectives that must be achieved by each government. So any government that comes in must look at what the previous government, where they reached, and take over from there. Because you have a vision to pursue. It's the same for Botswana. They now have Vision 2036. They are very focused on that vision. And for Botswana, I think it's every quarter ministers come on TV to answer questions from the members of the public on how far they've achieved their key performance indicators that they reported maybe, say, 3 months ago, 6 months ago. So there is this accountability on the path to the vision. I think for us, the lack of a focusing vision, even when it is there's Vision 2030, but it has been just referred to in speeches. But and we have good plans on paper, excellent policies, but implementation is always poor, because once you begin to implement, then as you said, politics comes in. And even when we talk about checks and balances from the opposition, again, when there's a strong adherence to a vision, then even the checks and balances must be government. What you are doing, is it taking us to that vision? It's not, to me, it's not even about promises. Because in those promises, how tied are they to the vision? Because the vision should be the one. What is Zambia's vision? And is this government or any other government doing things that is taking us to that vision? But I always see that loss of focus. And then anything else goes. So even the government can begin to do things that people are demanding. The checks and balances can be on things. If you ask, how is this related to the vision that we should achieve? Sometimes there isn't. So it is that vision that we need, and we need to get back. The second one is the values. The value system. I am going ahead of myself, Pastor, but can I say something about the values?
Please go ahead.
Yes. You and I, Pastor, are from old school. Now, we know we are now the elders of the country. It's a pity that our life expectancy in Zambia is so low that we have to be the elders. In other places, we are nowhere near there.
We are Sunday school material.
Yes, but we are elders. We had a value system, and I think we lost our value system when Bakeke left. That's when we lost it. What was there during Bachiluba was the inertia or the momentum from the Kaunda years. So for a few years more, we had some of those values, but after that they disappeared. You will remember the way we respected life and death. So for instance, if you are driving on the road and you see a convoy carrying a hearse, we all parked our cars, you know, you kind of like faced out of the road a little, and the people walking stopped by the roadside until the hearse passed. That seems like a small thing, but it spoke to respect for health, for life, and respect for dignity, human dignity. That's what it spoke to. And then it goes all the way to, if I'm going to steal money and there will be no drugs in hospitals and people will die who shouldn't be dying because I stole, then I will not do it. How come? Because of that dignity towards life, the respect towards life. That's only one value, but you can talk about...
But this time now, people are even overtaking the hearse.
And youths arrive, we're going to talk about youths, but they arrive at the cemetery screaming and shouting drunk at the cemetery. So we think that we can focus on hardware stuff like economic development in terms of infrastructure or buildings, and we ignore the software side of values and behavior and integrity issues. It's not sustainable. You have to work. So you said some countries, you've noticed what is different with us. Part of it is that software, the value system.
The value system.
Yes, sir.
Professor, I've taken you that route, not necessarily that I wanted to go that far, but because I admire those of you with grace to acquire the papers. How I wish I could have a degree, a PhD. How I wish I could have what you have. But God did not give me that grace to obtain what you have obtained. And the Bible says, let each man abide in his calling. And where I'm comfortable, I am quite comfortable in preaching.
Amen.
You know, and I'm grateful
Yep.
that I found entry into college to sharpen my skills of preaching.
Correct.
Nevertheless, I requested you to come to CamNet TV, Professor. There is this burning desire for the youths. In Zambia, we say, imiti, in Bemba, imiti kula, eyo bocha kwa marasha. That's practically, that's what we are doing. Akamutinga kakula mwambo kutema mulevi kefi marasha. But the old school, where we came from, they used to say, imiti kula, empanga. Because they respected the effects of the forest.
Correct.
And how it would contribute to the rains, to everything.
Yes,
but today, we come from the Chitemene background. We have no respect for the forest. And this is also true, Professor, that the majority of the people living on planet Earth are youths.
Correct.
And those youths, in African settings, they are only used for politics because youths are desperate. Youths, most of them, they have no vision. Most of them, they have no dreams. So if somebody just comes to tell them this, they will fall for it. Would you define for me and to the nation, who is a youth? Probably I've got it wrong.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, indeed, imiti kula empanga, and today they are in primary school. In another 20 years, they are our employees, or they are our workers, they are our managers. And that 20 years from now, what kind of jobs will be there? Are we preparing them for those jobs? What are we teaching them now? We'll talk about that because I think that's a big, big area. But the youth, there are different definitions of where youth is. The UN, for instance, define a youth as someone between 15 and 24 years. So 15 to 24 years is the youth in the UN. The Africa Youth Charter defines a youth as between 15 and 35 years. So 15 and 35 years. The Commonwealth, it's 15 and 29 years, that range. So the Zambia Youth Policy of 2015 followed the Africa Youth Charter. So for us, a youth is anyone between 15 and 35 years. So 15, 35, that band are our youths in Zambia. And definitely they are more than 50%, because I think the running total of our population should be between 19 and 20 million right now. And more than 50% of them are youths in Zambia. And of those, about 65% are literate, which is again very dangerous, because 65% means 35% can't read or write. Now, in a day like, in a time like this, where the world is, to have more than 1/3 of your youth unable to read or write is a terrible indictment. It's simply unacceptable, because the future we're going to requires people who can use mathematics and some science, what is called STEM. So science, mathematics, definitely. So they should be able to read and write. The time for cheap, uneducated labor was during the first industrial revolution, when all you needed to have were muscles. Now you must be able to operate sophisticated machine, equipment, so you have to have some education. And of that 65%, probably 22% are unemployed. So for Zambia, we are looking at a conservative 2 million plus youths who are just roaming around with nothing to do. That's a lot of people, and every year the number is increasing because they are coming out of school and joining their colleagues. So then for us, the youth, 15 to 35 years.
What would you say to our colonial education system?
Yes.
Has it helped Zambia? Has it helped Africa, or will it help this nation?
That's my area of passion, Pastor.
I say this,
Yes.
Professor,
Yes.
because one of the questions that I've asked myself,
Correct.
even before I met the professor of history in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
A very qualified man. This is a professor of history.
Yes.
Now you go to university, you are grade 12, and you have to go to university, obviously.
Yes.
You find somebody who hammers distinctions in history.
Yes.
And fails, maybe hammers also a merit in English,
Yes.
but fails in mathematics.
Correct.
And fails in science.
Yes.
Why would you declare that person down because he didn't have the 6 points or what?
Yes.
In America, they would have taken that boy
Yes.
and take him through to university so
Yes.
that he can become a professor of history.
Correct.
There are some plants like cotton, there are some plants here, even these sweet potatoes.
Correct.
You never waste anything.
Yeah.
Because you can eat leaves, you
Yes.
can eat the potato underground, and those things you can take them to Kalulu. Everything is of substance. Why do we waste human resource?
What I will say now, Pastor, I say it with due respect to the Ministry of Education here, because I'm not private to what steps they are taking to revolutionize the education system. So I'll speak generally. That the education system as it exists now had its time. It was designed for a world that existed once upon a time. I think the challenge of the entire education system, and it's all the way to universities, and it's many countries like this, it's that it's the most resistant to change, unfortunately, because it should be the one that should be ahead of the change curve. But the education system is most resistant. Part of the reason being that the professors in charge probably went through a certain schooling system. And it is that on which they base what they do. And they would want to maintain exactly that. So they will tell you, when I did my PhD, it took me 10 years, you know, and so they can't believe someone should be able to do a PhD in 3 years. But they forget that maybe when they did it, the libraries were only physical, and you had to get on a bus to go to a library, write a proposal, email. You didn't email, you sent it over you posted it, and it took a very long time to get to your supervisor, etc., etc. But this system is not good right now, because it's preparing children for a different world which doesn't exist, will not exist, it's gone. What we do need, and I hope and pray that this is already being thought out or probably acted out in Zambia, is a system called competence-based education. And it's backed by competence-based curriculum, CBC. That system is already being implemented in Kenya, as I know as of now, Uganda, I know Ghana, Rwanda. They already were ahead of the curve from about 2015, 2018, they were implementing. How does it work? Exactly the issue you raised. I pass in history, I fail in mathematics, and I'm useless? No. So what you do is, you have the first 2 years, they're called preschool. In those 2 years, you are just observing the kids to see where the interests lie. In fact, to introduce this system, if I take a step back, you also have to change the teacher education and training system, because you have to reorient teachers. It's not what they do now. You can't do that. They don't teach in this system. They facilitate learning. And technology is very important. The kids must have gadgets. And they are not, how can I put it? They are learners. And they help each other to learn. So anyway, first 2 years you are looking at them. A kid who is dancing too much, you know, this one is an artist, probably going to be a musician. Someone playing with things, maybe could be an engineer. Someone interested in what looks like could be a doctor. And you're just putting them in clusters of interest. You begin to group them in the class. 1, 2, there are some people who are slow and others are fast. For us here, we mix them. And usually the slow ones are left out. The teacher focuses on the fast learners. You cluster them also. So the slow learners are on their own, and the fast learners are on their own. And the facilitator now, not teacher, facilitator walks around, they have gadgets, and they are researching, they are going on Google, and etc., etc. First 2 years. After that, now they go on to class 1, but in their areas of interest. You combine a lot of technology, which means you are using what is called virtual reality, augmented reality. You're simulating. For instance, you simulate the mine. They wear those goggles. And in those goggles, they literally travel like underground into the mine. And they see what's going on. They visit companies virtually, and so on and so forth. You bring in a lot of these community leaders to speak to them also. So it brings teachers, community, and parents together as key stakeholders. Pastor, the idea is that by the time a child graduates, they must be ready to work if they're going to be employed from day one. There's nothing like we need experience. If you are still asking for experience, then what was the school system doing for 20 years? Because it should have prepared the kid to work from day one. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, then they should also be ready to do business as soon as they're out of school. So you are really giving competencies, and the kids are learning, and they basically learn how to learn, because knowledge is becoming obsolete all the time. So it's not what you memorized last year or 5 years ago. That is changing. So teach them how to learn, so that as they can learn, as knowledge changes, they know exactly how to acquire it. So then they acquire lifelong learning skills. So this kind of system is what we need now. In fact, we need it yesterday. We saw the big numbers I'm hearing in schools now, where a teacher can hardly handle 140 students in a class meant for 60. The competence-based system is the best, because you can put them in groups, in clusters. The teacher is not teaching, just facilitating learning, and the kids are teaching each other. So if you throw ideas at them, they go to Google and they say, this is what I found, and this one reads to the friends and they take notes. Another one said, I found another. So they can actually learn no matter what the number is. You're not standing with a chalk in front the whole day talking. The teacher no longer has the monopoly of knowledge, not even a professor. The knowledge is in your hand, on a gadget, on a smartphone. So you just direct them to where to find it. They will even find better definitions there than the teacher has. These huge numbers in class, competence-based. It will do it. That's what we need in Zambia, Pastor. Otherwise, the system as it is now, it's not prepared. It's just increasing the number of semi-literates and functional illiterates who come out, they can't do anything.
Now, Professor.
Yes, sir.
Elaborate more on that, because as we look at youth empowerment in Zambia,
correct,
these youths, you know, I'm a pastor. It breaks my heart for somebody to come and say, Pastor, I'm a degree holder, but there are no jobs. I was talking to a doctor at the Camnet grounds there.
Yes.
And he says, Pastor, you know that there are a lot of medical doctors who are not employed.
Correct.
So they do part-time jobs in that clinic and what. Why offload medical doctors? Offload this, and before we go deep into empowering a youth, how can you empower an illiterate youth? Because there has to be some form of knowledge. You've got to know some mathematics, you've got to know some English, and all these subjects, you need to have basic knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
But to develop our nation, like I said, as you said, knowledge-based or competence-based,
best, yes.
Some people will be taken into academics, whether you like it or not.
Yes,
there are those who want to be professors, but there are those also who want to make money.
Yes.
And there are those who like being employed and all this. How can we look at this youth and empower the youths of Zambia?
Maybe to answer that, first of all, we have to analyze, again, who are these youths? Because there are so many different types of youths. And our policy, our youth policy does identify about 17 types of youths. That's a lot. So you've got rural youth, who are different from urban youth. You've got female youths, male youths in the policy. I just read them out. Youth with disabilities, youth in schools, out of school youths, youth in tertiary institutions, youth in formal and informal employment, unemployed youth, neither in education nor in entrepreneurship training youth, Never been to school youth, youth affected with STIs, HIV/AIDS, youth heading households, youth at risk, youth migrants, youth in diaspora. So there are many types of youth, and the targeted solutions then would vary because of the different clusters of youth. But I see two approaches. One approach is I would call reactive approach, and I know this government is already thinking a lot along those lines. A reactive approach is where you are saying, we already have these millions of youths, and they are already stranded. What do we do with them? So you have already missed out some of the proactive strategies you could have used earlier. They are there with you now, and you have to do something. And they are an impatient lot. So you promised us kind of youths, like they are waiting for something. What do you do about them? So for them, I have some things I've thought about that we can discuss. Then there's the youths who are still in school, and you don't want them to come out and be like these ones who are already there and are giving you headaches. So how do you also make sure that by the time they come out of school, they don't just join this pool of helpless youths? So two-pronged strategy here. The way you deal with the youths who are still in school and are yet to come out. And then you have this pool of millions of youths who you already have on your hand. If the two are mixed, then you'll be confused. What will happen, in fact, is that you're fighting a losing battle, because these others keep joining and ballooning this number while you are trying to sort this number out, but you're not looking at prevention. So in terms of reactive, I would think that places like, for instance, national service, that structure already exists. They could be very useful, and I would imagine that government is thinking about that already. How to use the national service superstructure to directly affect the youths that already exist in terms of skills and so on and so forth, discipline, etc., etc. So I think national service would be something that one would
to reintroduce national service.
Well, reintroduce, if they want to give them some discipline in military and what have you, which would be wonderful. Whether we have the resources for that is another issue. But for me, more about skills. Like we used to have metal workshops, workshops in secondary schools those days, but they are not there, which is now the proactive we should use. But the national service can go into giving skills, bricklaying, what have you. Look at all these companies for block making, and they are being run by outsiders, non-Zambians. If these youths had all those skills, they're the ones who should be running those companies. These cooperatives we are talking about, they should be able to make these blocks for building. They are foreign investors who are definitely, imagine making blocks for building houses in Zambia. So national service could be useful for me. Vocational training, all these institutions that are being turned into universities, they should remain tertiary at the level of vocational level. So they give skills of turning bolts and nuts. Those are the people who build an economy. They wear blue overalls and they turn bolts. Everyone shouldn't get a degree. Degree means managing. Who are you going to manage? You need those people who really turn the bolts. So we need those institutions that give skills. You know, the NOTECs of this world. We need more of those than even universities, where people come out with a degree, but if they have no job, they are helpless because they were taught to manage something. But a guy with a skill, if he doesn't have a job, he'll look for a friend and partner and start something.
And those who go to train as motor mechanics,
exactly.
There are so many vehicles.
Yes.
You are traveling to Chipata, you have a breakdown, you can fix and you get something.
Oh yeah, you don't have to look for jobs as such. Then universities and colleges, during break, they should be able to say, okay, youths, this break time we want to train X thousand youths in the following skills. Then they ask the community for volunteers to come and mentor them. They close for months sometimes. They can give their facilities and bring in these youths and look for partners who can finance their upkeep and look for volunteers. People like myself, we go there and skill those youths. During those break times, they can chip in because these are youths we already have on our hand. And then, of course, there are those geographical subsidies where you say, KK had a lot of that. You say, if you set up a business in Mansa, the government will do the following for you. Because you are targeting youths there so they don't come to Lusaka, all right, and get stranded. Then someone goes, sits up there, and you give subsidies economic subsidies, but you want them to set up a business there. And as the business grows there and people stay there, they begin to work, eventually subsidies go away and the company can make its way without being subsidized.
But the problem that I see also in that, Professor,
Yes.
you have like the PF government
Yes.
dealing with solving that problem in on the Copper Belt.
Yes.
They gave them the Black Mountain, which turned out to be not many benefited.
Yeah.
UPND comes also.
Yeah.
They give out that Black Mountain,
Yeah.
thinking the problem is solved, when there are millions of youths who
Yes.
haven't even
Yes.
walked
Yes.
close to that Black Mountain.
Correct.
But that said, do you think we have the potential as a nation to solve youth unemployment?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's the youth unemployment or youth challenges, as we have them in Zambia, is what is referred to as a wicked problem. In social science, it's called a wicked problem. A wicked problem is a problem where, in trying to solve something, you create another problem. So you throw in this solution, it creates another problem, which means you cannot. There's no silver bullet. There is no one size fits all. You have to have a multi-pronged strategy. That's what you need. I'll give you an example, Pastor. In the UAE, they thought of we need to attract people. We are very few as a population. We need to attract outsiders to come and spend their money here. Now that looks like a straightforward thing. Just go and market yourselves to tourists so that tourists come. That's all. But that creates all sorts of problems in itself. It's a solution to your small economy to grow, but it will create all kinds of challenges. So you must address all the challenges at once. Don't introduce something, then you firefight when the fire breaks out. No, foresee the fire and prepare for it. So what the guys did was, okay, so if you're going to bring in people, we need to have an airline, big airline or airlines. So you've got Etihad, you've got Emirates, you've got Fly Dubai to go and bring in people, okay? But when people come, well, for instance, if you need big airlines, you need big airports. You see, so you solve the airport thing. But if you have a big airport, how are you going to quickly transport people into town without being stuck in the traffic jam before they arrive and they spend all their days on the way to town? You have to solve that transportation system. What about hotels where they'll stay? Okay, what about shopping centers, the biggest shopping malls? What time should they be closing? 23 hours, midnight, so that people can shop and fly out that night. Okay, what about security? Because if they are shopping in the night, what about thieves and what have you? You deal with the security issue. What if they fall sick when they come here? They will never come back if their relatives start dying. You deal with the health. So it is a simple looking problem, but it creates other problems. So you must address them at the same time. So the Black Mountain you talk about, so we are having a lot of challenges already to do with youth. Then you look at what to do immediately, what to do in the medium term, what to do in the long term. And you have to be systematic about it. Otherwise, you start firefighting. But what I see with governments, all of them, PF, before them MMD, now UPND, it's more not focusing a lot on the communication strategy. Because really, in this day and age with social media, if you are not at the center of communication, somebody else will communicate, and they usually miscommunicate and cause all sorts of dissatisfaction, despondency, and even rebellion. And when you look, and social media is, you know what social media has done? It gives us a lot of information, wonderful. But it also means the wise, the foolish, the close to being mad are all on social media. There's no segregation. Everyone is there. I mean, you read something, you are like, this one is a candidate for China, but he's on social media. And nobody can stop him. So if you are not heading or leading the communication strategy, someone else will be miscommunicating. So you have to be saying, for our youth, for instance, this is what we are doing immediately. But because we are limited in resources and we want to be systematic, this is what we are planning for the medium term. And this is what we are putting together for the long term. Now, hold us on the following key performance indicators. In the immediate term, we are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold us accountable. In the intermediate term, we will do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hold us accountable, etc. Then you tell them, don't hold us accountable now for the medium-term performance indicators. And don't hold us accountable now for the long-term performance indicators. Hold us accountable for the short-term performance indicators, because that's what we can do now. Now, that kind of communication is crucial, so that you don't allow the close to Chainama guys to start miscommunicating, and they confuse everybody. And you are quiet. Then people believe, if you repeat a lie many times, it begins to look like the truth. And social media is full of lies. And when the lie is found out, the guy doesn't apologize. He's just quiet. They move on to another thing. So you have to have a serious communication strategy. In fact, in change management, we say if you don't communicate, that change will be resisted and it will be thrown out. No matter how good it is, you have to communicate. Communication is almost 50% to your solution. If you don't communicate, even the good you are doing will not be known, and people will kick it out together with you. They will throw out the baby with the what? The bath water. Yes. So I see both my current government, our current government now, they're not communicating effectively. So I see a few people here, flashes, someone comes and speaks, and people are like, yeah, this is good, but it's just an individual and another individual. We need a centralized
national agenda.
Yes, and you keep pointing people to the vision, to the policies, to what you are doing. Ministries themselves, each ministry must have a serious communication team. Each ministry. And then, of course, these same quasi-government guys should also, we need to have a crescendo of noise. Let there be over-communication. That's okay. Not under-communication. Because now people, blindly walking around, they will believe anyone who is shouting. Imagine you are lost in the darkness and you hear someone say, come here, come here. That's the guy you follow. And maybe the one who knows the better way is quiet. You won't go there. And that's what has been happening. It's not just here. A lot of Africa has suffered that. During Bakeke, there was a lot. We didn't have social media, so it was ZNBC, and we listened, the radio.
But, Professor, when you were in a SAMI actively, you used to send me a lot of photos where you would be lecturing, maybe cabinet or what, and Museveni is sitting next to you. What was the president listening from you? Because those photos, I cherish them where you are teaching and Museveni is near you listening as part of the audience. Was it just coming to open the meeting or?
Oh, no. That president was good. He used to sit in, and because I think he has a background of teaching, so he used to sit in. I remember one time they had just revised their Vision 2030 to Vision 2040. And it was very good, and they said by 2040 we must achieve this. And I went to the front and told them, actually, if you did 1, 2, 3 things, you should be able to achieve this 10 years ahead of schedule. And the president said, that's what I've been telling these guys, that we can achieve this earlier than you are saying. Because, he was really focused on almost in a hurry to see things happen. I saw that with him. I sat also in Tanzania during President Magufuli. We never quite met, but I was comfortable. He was a PhD guy, though, in chemistry, but he had worked as a minister for 20 years, so he knew government, he knew what was wrong, he knew how he was resisted as a minister when he wanted to do things. Now he was a president, so he could really hit the ground running. I could see also in him, like Museveni at the time, a sense of urgency. Like there's no monkeying around here. We have too many poor people. Our country is struggling. We have to work. And I watched President Magufuli hire people like this evening and fire them the following day. If he discovers something he didn't know, he didn't decide to sack you immediately until he got a team he wanted. And he would visit a place like UTH, and he says he finds people sleeping on the floor. He finds the X-ray machine is not working. The scan machine is not working. Like I observed in UTH last month, scan machine, the CT scan doesn't work. This doesn't work. Magufuli visited the hospital and he found this machine not working, this machine not working. He goes to the pharmacy, they don't have drugs. Then he looks outside, there are pharmacies outside the hospital full of drugs. So he told the boss of the hospital, I'm coming back next week. If these machines are not working, both you and your deputy are fired. And if I find the pharmacies without drugs, you are fired. The following week, all the machines were functioning and the pharmacy was full of medicines. he would sack people publicly. So again, that sense of urgency. And I saw Tanzania achieve their Vision 2025, 5 years ahead of schedule. Within the first 5 years of Magufuli's presidency, they became a lower middle income country. Within 5 years, they caught up. Now, I know that we had reached lower middle income country under Mwanawasa at that time. I think we are again least developed by virtue of our GDP per capita. We have dropped again. I also saw that someone gave statistics, I think it's Reverend Mwambazi, gave some statistics on Facebook, which are correct. He said in 2010, Kenya's GDP was $40 billion. I'm giving this because, I mean, youth empowerment, you need money, you need a growing economy. $20 billion GDP for Kenya in 2010. $20 billion for Zambia GDP in 2010, roughly. So Kenya was twice our GDP. Fast forward 10 years later, in 2020, Zambia's GDP, 19 billion. Kenya's GDP, 100 billion. So, and
it has grown more than
5 times ours now. And of course, we have a $20 billion debt. So our GDP went down. We borrowed huge. And we are now 5 times smaller than Kenya. Now, if your GDP is growing like Kenya, even Tanzania has grown, I think, 3 times. If your GDP grows like that, you have resources to deal with your youths. Yeah, because you can say, okay, national service, yeah, give them resources. Okay, build training center. The policy, 2015 policy of Zambia says to build many training centers for skills for youths. You can give those resources and build those centers because your economy is growing. The taxes you collect are huge. So then, and this is why I said wicked problem. Because you have to look at many things. That includes growing the economy. Because if you don't grow the economy, where will the jobs come from? The economy must grow to build jobs, to empower youths, to have money running around for youths to borrow or grants to give them, to hire mentors to mentor them. So you need a multi-pronged strategy. And every ministry, every agency, every government body must be tuned to the vision. And be upset about poverty. Be upset about people dying in hospital who shouldn't be dying. You just have to visit a hospital. Go into casualty at UTH and see one doctor having to deal with so many patients, and she's exhausted. And accident victims come in, she's the only one who must respond to that. That already should tell you that, look, doctors are unemployed out there, but we don't have them here. Why? We don't have the capacity to pay the doctors. Why? The economy is not growing. So get upset about that and begin to work. Drop to values. Think of the work culture of our Zambians. I mean, Pastor, I've been working now for a few months with local workers, and I see our problem. I think the beer demon is a curse for the country. Because our youths who come to work, they're smelling beer, and they are tipsy. And they want to knock off very early, or their thing is to go and meet at a pub, and it's during the week. And you hear people saying, if you want your house to be built properly, hire Zimbabweans or Chinese, not the locals. Again, that speaks to our education system, speaks to our culture. Again, the wicked problems. Yes, skills, attitudes. So when we talk about youth empowerment, then it's not only giving them skills and competence, but you want to work on the culture, on their attitudes, on their self-esteem, self-belief, sense of confidence, decorum, dignity, personal dignity, the way you carry yourself. All those things, they come together to deal with this wicked problem.
Professor.
Yes, sir.
You have been a visiting professor in some countries.
Yes, sir.
You have helped, like I said, Uganda is one of the countries, and you have helped to educate or to train the bankers in other countries and here. Now you are back in Zambia. Are you doing some consultancy? Can you train a small company? I'm just beginning like
yes.
this. Can we hire you? Can you train this? because like somebody has said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. So
Yes.
my wife and I, Professor, you know me.
Yes,
You
sir.
and I come a long way. I'm very passionate about success.
Correct.
I think for me, God, not I think,
You
God
know.
wired a DNA of success in my life.
Good.
I don't like failure.
Yes.
Once I believe and I'm convinced that I'm supposed to do this, I succeed. Now, can you help the many Zambian companies there, the many individuals who were born for greatness, but they don't know how to find their feet? Can you show them the path for greatness?
Absolutely, absolutely, Pastor. One of the reasons why, let me put it this way, what used to eat me up over the years was when I would be in a country and I'm helping out this bank or this organization really transition, and all the time in my mind I'm thinking, I wish this was back in my home country, which is one of the reasons why I came. Part of the challenge I think that one faces when you come from the diaspora back home is the fact that, especially our age group, you find that the people who would have known you went out of the country too. So they're in New Zealand, in Canada, in the US, in UK. So you come home, you find a team that doesn't know you because the next generation, they're the ones who are there now. So you're not known. But otherwise...
And also those who are there, they are a bunch of semi-retarded.
function.
Yeah.
But since I came back, yes, I can say, I'm sure the client wouldn't mind, but I have worked on a plan with Invest Trust Bank. We really did some training, did a strategic plan there. I've worked with Dr. Siatwambo, Great North Road Academy. Yes, in fact, we are supposed to work on a strategic plan also with them, and so those ones we've been on and off. But even since I came, you find much of the work I'm doing online with Tanzanian companies, Ugandan companies, because for them they'll just follow. Where are you now? I'm in Zambia. Can you train us? But I can't come there. Or can you do it virtually using Zoom or Microsoft Teams? I say yes. Then I do for them. So in Zambia, not yet that much, but yes, whether it's mentoring a board of directors or top EXCO, executive committee team of management, or training staff at all levels in a company, whether it's in leadership, in governance, in customer care, productivity management, organizational design, I don't know, personal effectiveness, change management, transformation, cultural transformation. We can do all those things. And the difference with doing it in your country is that the level of passion is a bit different. Because now you know that if this one improves, they will employ more people, even some of my relatives and friends. If these guys do well, the economy will grow. We'll leave a better country to our children, our grandchildren. So this becomes now not just for money anymore. You go a mile beyond the fee you are being paid.
Wanting to see your country develop.
Develop, because I look at Zambia and how far back we've remained. When I went to Tanzania, when you introduce yourself as I'm from Zambia, they were like, wow, you're from Zambia? Yes. How is Lusaka? You know, and there was that admiration. Now, no. I mean, Dar es Salaam and Lusaka.
You can't compare.
No, please, no. We're way, way behind. So they wouldn't even look twice at us anymore.
Really?
Absolutely. And you see, and I saw the development while I was there. It's the same for Kampala. I mean, you look at all these, Nairobi, we can't even go there. So as I walked around, traveled around, you feel this, my country need to move too. Because you appreciate what you are seeing, but you have a twinge of holy jealousy.
I know.
Okay? You're like, but my country.
I know what you're talking about.
I wish this street was in my country. I wish these structures, I wish these companies with this size, billions of dollars, I wish it was in my country. You keep thinking that. So you are training a board of directors somewhere and you're wishing, I wish these guys. So for instance, I was training TANESCO. TANESCO is a ZESCO equivalent. And I'm training their board and management. I'm like, I wish this was ZESCO. All right? The same for ESCOM in Malawi. I wish this was ZESCO. I was training NMB Bank, which is the equivalent of Zanaco. They are sister banks because they are both co-owned by Rabobank of the Netherlands. have trained hundreds of their staff up to the chief executive and her team. And I'm thinking, I wish this was Zanaco. So all the time you are wishing, I was training the pastor, I trained all the judges of Tanzania up to the chief justice. I trained the military guys, generals. And all the time I'm thinking, I wish these were Zambians. Okay? I mean, I'm doing a good job because they are paying. But what if I was doing it to Zambians?
You see, this is why, Professor, people may not understand my passion with my wife.
Yes, sir.
You see, I'm so passionate about this nation.
Yes.
I asked you to come on set.
Yes, sir.
So that the nation, somebody somewhere there, may see the gem which we don't use.
Correct.
Which we don't.
Correct.
Because of my mingling with you people and seeing the success that you have achieved, it breaks my heart to see that sometimes you find somebody called a leader. Okay, let me just mention. He is a permanent secretary.
Right.
He's a PS. Doesn't even know how to write a professional letter.
Yeah.
And how to conclude a professional letter. You find that I am saying this because one day I was with President Chiluba, may he so rest in peace. He received this letter. And you can imagine, it was CC to President Chiluba. And the President Chiluba got annoyed. He put the letter there on the file. He says, listen, which school did you go to? You don't CC a president. But it's coming from some government offices there, CC President Chiluba. It's those things, Professor, which breaks my heart. And being a Zambian, and now we have these youths that I'm so passionate. I want the youths to succeed. Our last born daughter has just graduated from Monash University in South Africa with a degree in economics. Okay, she hasn't graduated, but she completed.
Yes.
She's going for graduation in a few months' time.
Correct.
But, okay, now she's an economist. What next?
Yes.
She's not the only one. There are several of her friends who graduated from there earlier than her. What next? So this is what I'm saying, Professor, that may God help you and help this nation. Those that are listening to this program, National Matters Tonight, they can be able to say, Zambia, we can do it. We can make it. And the problem that we have also, Professor, is that when you talk, and this is one problem I found, when you talk or you just criticize the government or you just observe something wrong, you are labeled. But you remember that, Professor, when we were at Tivoli Non College, what brought me close to Vasata, it's because of me, I don't like seeing bad things being perpetuated. I've spoken from the times of Vakaunda, may he so rest in peace, our father, to this time. And I will speak even beyond.
Correct.
You know. Why? Because I'm a Zambian. I want to live in a Zambian full of people who are educated and who have a vision for the future. So, that said, Professor, talk to me. Should all the youths look for jobs? Are there no projects or other things that they can do even without the government giving them a job? Are there no things that they can do to get money?
Plenty, Pastor. Just to echo what you mentioned, you said hanging around people like this makes you feel it. Leadership, true leadership does not necessarily mean that you will have all the skills and qualities that your team has. What is important for a leader is to be able to identify skills, personalities, and then put them in a team. And then just make sure that you empower them to do what should be done. That's what. So you're hanging around people who have the capability. It's leadership itself, because then all it takes is bring these people together and say, do it. Actually, a leader does not even have to do. A leader simply needs to create an environment where doers can do. That's it. And so, can Zambia deal with this problem? Yes, we can. Look, Zambia is, our population is one of the youngest in the world, meaning most of our population are young. That is an asset in and of itself, properly harnessed. It's a huge asset. We are in a technological era now, and these kids can learn so fast because they are born with these gadgets. They don't even use manuals. They just pick it and they can run their way around. So if you go to Rwanda, you find these youths are the ones creating drones. They're coming up with software. You know, they set up platforms online where youths can come and share their ideas, and these ideas are funded. So you find the government, like for instance, President Kagame is a patron of the youths. So he will bring them into a stadium once a year, and all these youths gather, and the president ensures, therefore, he's looking for partners who can come and partner with these youths because they have ideas, but the ideas need to be funded. So you need that seed money, you know, that venture capital to finance these ideas. So because they are full of energy. That's why it's easy for them to become frustrated and commit suicide, because they become depressed and go into drugs and things like that.
When they don't
have anything to do.
Have the sense
they
of
don't,
satisfaction.
They don't know where to take their energy. So we are very young, which means we have an asset, but it has to be harnessed. It can be harnessed. What is lacking, like I said earlier on, that when you have the wrong people talking, speaking, and setting the narrative, then you have youths who are desperate, and they're easy, therefore, to hijack, and their energies are misapplied. When you have situations like that, where people should be the mentors, are the ones, you know, going ahead saying all kinds of things online that mislead youths, then you have challenges here. And that's why I talked about, emphasize the communication strategy that will override the wrong voices, so that the youths can begin to look to people of integrity. They need mentors. They need role models. I've seen myself when I've taken just a small effort. I go to my village and I call all my young people at the village. I call them, put them there. I talk to them first of all about things of God. Then I begin to ask them, what are your dreams? I realize how thirsty and hungry they are, how they don't have the right people speaking into their lives. They look at their fathers, maybe there's not much there to emulate, and this is all they see. So their future for them is dim, hopelessness. So what do? Beer drinking. Before you know it, they upscale to something worse, into drugs, marijuana, and what have you. So we need, if you have mentorship, you know, and here both government. I think in Zambia we talk a lot about government. So I'm happy when you are saying, can things be done by the youths without government? And I would say a lot can be done actually among the youths themselves, than even just looking to government with its limited resources. But the youths on their own have a challenge unless communities are involved. So at community level, there's a lot that can be done. I see some youth, sometimes they come on a broken road on their own and they are trying to mend, and then they're asking money from motorists who are passing there. And I look at it, there's actually a community there which drives there. But you see, the community is so detached from what to do about the youth, for instance. So the community is simply saying government must do something. But imagine if that community came together, put some resources, and then hire those youths in the community there to do that kind of project. The youths will be employed for a while, and maybe the money they raise from there, they can own to finance some ideas that they have, which simply lacked capital. So we have youths, we have a community, we have a government, we have a private sector, we have the NGO sector. All these people working together, contributing at different levels, can impact the youth. Government alone cannot. It's a mammoth task. Community should chip in. NGOs should not work in isolation. Donors, all these guys, when they all come together, a lot can be done. But what government can do is to champion this collaboration. Champion the collaboration. That is what government can do. Government can champion that collaboration, because you need a platform where all these guys can come. But even at community level, community leaders, I'm not sure how strong our wards are from a political side, because if those were strong, they could do a lot at ward level. The fact that I see very little happening at that level tells me perhaps how weak the system is at those lower levels. And so always it's looking to central government. I find that a government whose economy was shrinking and it's overborrowed already, and you are all just looking to government, it will take a long time to make a difference.
You know, Professor, there was a time I flew into Nairobi.
Yes.
Or I think, yeah, not this time, the time I was going to Hong Kong.
Yes.
But we came for a seminar. In fact, that time they bombed those restaurants in
yes,
in Kenya.
Yes, yes, yes. In what is that place here down there in the mall?
That mall there.
Yes, yes.
It's
Sarit Center.
Yes. Just on that second floor.
Yes.
That's where we had lunch with some pastors. And the day I flew out,
they bombed.
That's when they bombed. So I'm sitting here looking at CNN and I'm saying, that's where we sat.
Yesterday.
And but the point is this, when I came, I think that time, from here to Kenya, it takes us about 2.5 hours or 3 hours. Am I right?
Yeah, 2 hours, 20 minutes.
2 hours, But do you know that from that Jomo Kenyatta Airport into town, Professor, it took us about 3 hours?
Correct.
Because of traffic.
Yes.
The distance from Jomo Kenyatta Airport
to
the hotel, Western Hotel.
Yeah, a few kilometers. Yeah.
That Western Hotel after town.
Yes.
It took us 3 hours.
Yes.
But sitting on the plane about 2.5 hours.
Yes, yes.
Now, what I saw, that road, the highway,
now,
that goes through Muthaiga.
Yes, it is on top.
I said to myself.
It's a flyover from airport all the way to Westlands.
I said to myself.
Yes.
Zambia.
Yes.
What have we done?
Yes, yes.
I look at all this. Look at the agriculture sector. Those people don't have the land like we have.
No.
In Zambia.
It's a tiny one.
So when I came back, my wife and I began pushing this for agriculture thing.
Correct.
Professor, I have all these connections of people, markets, and it pains to see Zambia doing what they are doing.
Yeah.
This is why sometimes people don't understand me. When I hit politicians hard, they think I am just a person who talk. You know, I bleed inside because this nation, Professor, we can do a lot.
Endowed.
We can do a lot.
We are endowed with a lot.
But talk to me.
Yes.
What are some of the things that the youths can do, please? Because, dear Camnet viewers, let me tell you, this professor I'm talking to, he has flown around the world. He lectures MBA students. He has written a book. Did you bring a copy?
Oh, I left it. I left it. By the way, another one is with the editors now, almost publishing the second book.
He has written a book. You buy his book. I can tell you, if you are studying MBA, you will never fail. I guarantee you. There are people who have sat under him, MBA students and whatever. You just be there. But Professor, I'm talking about
our youths and
our youths.
What can be done?
What can be done? How can we empower the youths? I'll tell you something, Professor.
Yes.
My wife and I have gone into soccer, which you know.
Yes.
You know that those Camnet boys, I'm so jealous of them.
Yes.
They are playing so much good soccer.
Yes.
And when I look at the talent, I've told the boys, guys, I'll use more connection to get you into Europe.
Good.
You go and play soccer there. You look at the potential that we have, Professor. I don't know. I just want to be part of the blessing to this nation.
Correct.
Joining Mr. Kamanga's administration in FAS by sending a lot of boys into Europe. What does that mean? It simply means when these boys go there, they will be making more money than they can even make in a local club here. You know. So that is the passion. How I wish I could start a team in Chipata, team in Chinsali, team in this. But like you said, even the corporate world, it doesn't fund people with brains, people with ideas and vision, social, what do you call it, social responsibility?
Yes, yes, CSR. Yes.
CSR, it's in this nation, my God, God help us. Please help me to alande fya kumbali yamu.
Like I said, there's the immediate, the short term, and the long term. Immediately, I think in the immediate term, government, especially government, has to focus on areas with high employment potential or high entrepreneurship potential, so to speak. And for us, it's agriculture. There was a time when the talk was, look, the agrarian revolution is in history. You know, agriculture will no longer be a basis for economic takeoff. There was a time when that was being preached, that we have moved on from agrarian, because that was pre-industrial revolution. We then industrialized as a world, so things are moved on. Then moved on to technology. So guys, don't keep looking to the land. We know different now.
Mr. Director, please give the people the lines. I would want them to help me ask questions to the professor. You can send your text messages and everything, but don't open the line now. Let Professor empty himself. Yeah.
Correct. So, yes, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. That is true. And so technology is the thing. I mean, where we are going in future, again, a lot of employment or jobs as we know them will not exist. Already they are going obsolete. Drivers, because there are vehicles that drive themselves, trains that run themselves, etc., etc. So a lot of jobs will become obsolete, but there will be new jobs created. So technology is definitely the in thing, and the youths, like I said earlier, technology is their thing.
Just like when flying now, there used to be a flight engineer.
Yes.
But this modern technology they have, you just have a pilot and a co-pilot.
The plane will land itself sometime. But agriculture still remains the sector with the highest employment potential. Even now, it employs the largest part of our population, but contributes very little to our GDP because of productivity issues, because we never focused on agriculture. So when we say we have a bumper harvest, it's a laughable amount for a country like this. Say this time with bumper, we should even stop talking about bumper. Because that's kind of like comparing two dwarfs and say, this is the taller dwarf. And then you celebrate. He's the tallest of all the dwarfs we've had. But he's still a dwarf, right? A bumper harvest should be because you compare yourselves to your potential and you say, we have beaten our potential, we've achieved it. But when your potential is 100 and then you've only been producing 5, then you produce 10 and you say bumper. How is it a bumper when you are able to produce 100 and you are at 10? So agriculture, well harnessed, can employ so many of these youths. And when you think about the value chain in the agriculture sector, it can absorb youths at various levels of the chain. And it can produce so many jobs. So both at the farming level, basic, and then you start, just first level processing and so on and so forth, until you're now distributing and marketing. So many levels, so much potential. And we have huge lands, millions of hectares, very little utilized. We can grow anything. We never knew we could grow apples, for goodness sake. We never knew all these things could be grown in Zambia. Grapes. And suddenly we are seeing people with huge grapes, huge apples. All these things are possible. We've been importing these things. And our youths are in town. You remember KK saying, go back to the land, Makaunda, go back to the land. It didn't work, of course, because we were so town-minded. Then Bachiruba came in, and then we had liberalized. And guys left villages for town. And they've remained in towns.
And Jeremy brought a concept in his campaign.
Yes.
Village concept.
Yes.
We never caught that.
No. It's only now people are beginning to realize maybe the land. But then again, you realize the people who are going back to the land, are they educated? And sometimes they are the ones who are employed in town. So they drive and they are staying in a village, but they are driving to town still. So, but the people who really need farming, because in town they have nothing to do, they are still in town. So we need really to push the agriculture sector. That one can sort out our youth challenges to a huge, huge degree because the potential exists and we haven't used that potential at all. So I see technology, I see agriculture, I see sports. I mean, the sports sector collapsed. When we were in secondary school, those inter-secondary school sports was a huge thing. And that's where people chose which sports to go into. These matete people and all those guys, they started running in school. Footballers with high jump, everything, javelin, shot put, those things were big. They just collapsed out of schools. So again, that's an area that can take a lot of youths because they're energetic, they can do things at that age, but you see that they're neither in football, they're not in any kind of sports. So what are they doing? Looking for jobs, limited jobs of come Monday to Friday, sit on a desk. So we've restricted ourselves. Youth, yes, we can address the youth. Art, huge art potential that youth can do. And you go into shopping malls, you find an art gallery. And often it's some outside guy who has come, you know, there's no encouragement. It's almost like a parent who say, you want to do art, that's not a career, you know. You want to sing, that's not a career. You want sports, that's not a career. You must become a manager in a company. Please. And the salaries they get paid, even in government, the salaries they get paid, it's peanuts. That's what you want your child to do? Why not focus them on entrepreneurship?
Professor, you've traveled wide.
Yes, sir.
I went to this mall in Hong Kong.
Yes.
And you find, like you have talked about art,
yes,
you find people drawing this side, people drawing this side.
Yes.
But what took me was I saw this man drawing Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
He was just drawing, and when he started, I was there. I went after 20, 30 minutes, I found him. The way he was doing his thing, and they are so fast. Then I asked, can you draw me?
Yes.
He says, yeah. And he was asking for $25,
In Hong Kong
to
dollars.
just in Hong
Yes.
Kong,
Yes.
to just draw me. Now it says you wait for 30 minutes, but where we were going could not allow me to wait for 30 minutes. Now, if you can do $25 in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
or within an hour,
Yeah.
what about 10 hours?
Yeah.
What about per
1
day,
month.
per month? And even same in by the River Thames in England.
Yes,
there,
yes,
you find
yes.
these guys who draw. But all these things the government
Yeah.
doesn't talk about.
Yeah.
That you can go there and ask Professor MUNKUMBA, can I draw you?
Yes.
And bring a portrait.
Yes.
I would rather have that portrait than go and get a photo from some street guy with a camera. You know?
But that speaks again to our school system. Does it identify abilities in the little ones and then put them on that path? Because you can tell this is this child's calling. They will learn other things, English, mathematics, whatever, but the calling is in art. It doesn't matter whether the guy gets 4 subjects at Form 5, whatever you call those grades. It doesn't matter. As long as in art he does well, because that's his calling. And he's going to make his life through that. He doesn't have to be a scientist. He's not going to follow science. He doesn't have to be a mathematician. He just needs to know how to count money, etc. But he will draw, and he will make his living there. And you focus that kid on that one. So this whole thing of carry a lot of books, memorize a lot of stuff, and pass so many subjects. Once upon a time, not now. Now you need to identify talents, and then give this wholesome education, because the guy should be able to operate in an economy, but focus now on their specific talent. So if it's art, it's art, and then you create a market for it. You know, people, these Western guys, they come and create a market where there isn't one. They just advertise how good this thing is. Before you know it, you're all going for it, and the market has been created. So you create a market, but it has to go back to our school system. That's why I say the competence-based education system is good, because it identifies all those things in the children and begin to develop them. And because you are working with the community, the parents, and then other stakeholders like private sector and what have you, as these kids are being developed, then you're already working on potential markets, potential hirers. You know, you think of hubs where they can congregate to do their thing, ply their trade. So that kind of systematic, logical thinking. Can I say also, Pastor, that in our countries that are ravaged by poverty, we have to move away from the next election mentality. We have to be thinking about next generation mentality.
Not next election.
No, you see, the Americans, the British, all these Western countries, because we follow them, they have really misled us. Because for them, they can afford. Look, in America, 2 years after elections, they are already campaigning. They have that luxury. They are developed. If you're not employed, they pay you an allowance every week. So they are okay. They can play politics. There's so much political hatred among themselves. If you look at the Republicans versus Democrats, they can almost kill each other. They have the luxury to do that. But we are following them. It's next election. In poverty, and you are thinking next election. For us, we should be thinking about our vision. Where will our country be in 2026?
Absolutely.
Can we reduce the poverty levels from 60% to at least say 40%? And we are all fighting around that. If we see there's no change, no. What you are doing is not impacting poverty. Our country is not getting better. Look, our neighbors are doing better. What about us? So people should be quarreling around those objectives. Not we will win the next election. That's when you begin to tell that very few people are concerned about a country. They're concerned about themselves. That's why they are thinking elections.
It's employment.
Exactly. Because, I mean, if you are all quarreling over elections, I'm not in government. So where am I myself? To just vote you in? And then what do I do? What are you doing for us? So we have to move away. I don't know. This is where maybe the church could be very handy with the NGOs to push for politicians to depoliticize the environment and focus on objectives for the country.
Professor, I'm not just taking the credit.
Yes, sir.
With my wife.
Yes.
But I met one Nigerian.
Yes.
Who said, you know, Pastor, the kind of information you offload on Camnet can transform the nation.
Please.
Because of the people we bring here.
Correct.
And he said to me, you know, if people were following this, if this broadcast was in Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians would benefit. But how many in Zambia would even sit down and say, we thank God for the knowledge that we are getting? The next moment you are saying, the president is wrong in this and this.
You are
now labeled as a cartel, or you are labeled that. This is where I just say, Lord, help us. Because this nation, Professor.
Yes, sir.
This nation has got potential. It has potential.
No.
I can tell you, I've told my wife and I have said to the boys there.
Yes.
I'm just praying for government to recognize the works that we have begun doing.
Correct.
But we have said every year we'll be sending not less than 10 boys into Europe to go and play soccer. And we'll produce that. I know that. Now, 5 years from now, how many boys will you have? About 50.
And they make a lot out
They make a lot of money, but the whole point is this, Professor.
Yes.
When you have those boys playing that caliber of soccer, Africa Cup would not be a thing that we should be counting after 90 years. You say we won Africa Cup 90 years ago. You know, when you are counting who has won Africa Cup, you're looking about, just talking about Egypt, Nigeria, Mali, those countries. When you go from southern countries,
Zambia,
you are knocked out in first round, second round. No, Professor.
Does it make sense?
I think we deserve better.
I know.
We deserve better. We can and we will make it.
I agree, Pastor. This is why for our youths, for me, building self-esteem, self-respect, self-appreciation, self-dignity, I think is a start. Because I look around, sometimes I almost despair when I see the attitude of the average youth in the country. You can almost despair. You can see that something missed along the trajectory of their growth. when things should have been inculcated into them, it was not. So the level of self-dignity, self-respect, just self-esteem is pretty low. And this is important. I mentioned last time that whenever we would have examinations for our students, and when I was still lecturing, I'm now doing more training. In fact, now I'm not lecturing anyway, I'm just doing training and consulting. But when I was lecturing, it's an MBA course, and maybe 5 countries have sat the exam. And so I mark, say, for Uganda, I mark for Kenyans, I mark for Tanzanians. Tanzanians will be challenged in English, but they have substance. Do you know, Pastor, that I rarely marked Zambia immediately? Because if I mark Uganda, and then I immediately mark Zambia, I would fail the Zambians.
Oh, really?
Yes. And this is master's level. So I would finish marking these other countries, then I take a break. Yeah, leave it. Come back tomorrow, then I mark my own country, so that I come with a fresh binoculars, fresh spectacles.
Yes.
Yeah, because if I just mark the Ugandan and I pick a Zambian, I'll give them F. So I started asking myself, but why? Because the Zambian education system was so good. When we went to study in London, we never accepted to be second to anybody. Oh no, people knew it. We sit exams, we beat them. Beat the Mzungus, the other countries. You come out first. When I did my SCCA, I passed. We were 30 students from around the world. West Indies.
At the London...
London School of Accountants. We were 30. There were many classes, but my class had 30. And one guy from Cyprus passed, another guy, I forget, from West Indies passed, and myself from Africa. 3 of us out of 30. 27 failed, they repeated. But Zambia, we were like that. If any group passes, there will be Zambians there. Our education system was absolutely excellent. So now I am marking, and I see a batch of Zambian papers, and I can't mark them after marking Ugandans or Kenyans, because I'll fail the Zambians. I'm like, what has happened? So it speaks again to investment in education, in teachers training, and that's why I would, if this is not happening, I would wish that at the Ministry of Education immediately and I think we have a curriculum development authority, I hope, they begin to work on our curriculum and also influence the universities to revise their curriculum in terms of teacher education or teacher preparation and training. Because if you don't invest in education, you are not investing in anything. So that to me is a must-have.
Professor.
Yes, sir.
I may not be the best of interviewer. The best interviewers are out there watching us.
Yes.
I would like to give chance,
please,
to Zambians to ask questions. And Mr. Director, please, I need the phone calls, I need the SMSs, I need whatever it is. Please, may God help you, my director. They work under stressful times, but there it is. Great program, sirs. I agree so much with Professor MUNKUMBA. People with integrity are not ready to be in politics of insults and hatred. Who has allowed this? Who have track record on performance?
From Chimwanga in Livingstone.
Chimwanga in Livingstone. That's the question. Well spoken, Professor. My concern is that as a country, we are still spending too much time on politics. What do you think of the current government youth empowerment strategy? This is Chola in Kablonga. What do you think of the government current strategy for the youth empowerment? Answer that question, Professor.
Thank you. There is, I mentioned earlier, I think this government too, in addition to their manifesto, I think they are following the Zambia National Youth Policy of 2015. And it's a very good policy, very well written. The challenge, I think, as usual for us, is implementation. The policy's vision, for instance, says a nation of skilled, enlightened, economically empowered and patriotic youth. This is the vision of the Zambia National Youth Policy 2015. A nation of skilled, enlightened, economically empowered and patriotic youth. Then they talk about youth mainstreaming. They identify the types of youth. They talk about youth empowerment, youth taking charge of their lives. And then they talk about policy guiding principles, accessibility, inclusiveness, equality and equity, respect for human rights, respect for culture, transparency, responsiveness. It's a very good policy. It talks about key strategies and so on and so forth. So I have no doubt that this government must be marrying this plus their own manifesto on what they think should be done to the youths. So if they are following this policy, which I have no doubt they are, it's a good policy. What I think is often a challenge, like I mentioned earlier, is communication. So, for instance, the ministries...
You are saying that is for 20 what?
It was designed in 2015. Because there was one in 1994, I think there was another in 2006, then there's the latest one, 2015. I'm not aware of another one.
Okay.
Yes.
How come the architects of the 2015, who were the PF,
yes,
how come they never implemented
yeah, but this is exactly the issue. I've heard that complaint also in Uganda, where they said they do the plans and Rwanda implements. So we have this challenge also here, that we do the plan, but we are not implementing. Yes.
Let me pick up this call. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Pastor, and evening, Professor.
Good evening.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
I am now in Kaonga. I'm calling you from Chingola.
Kaonga?
Chinkamni.
Oh, you are a blessing, born for greatness.
Amen.
Naomi, please go ahead and speak to the nation.
Yes. What I want to say is, it all starts with our education system. You see, like in most government schools, like I who grew up in government schools from grade 1 up to university, you will find that in a class, like I went to enroll my sister's children at a government school, there are about 70 in one class. How does one teacher, identify art or skill or talent in this? So you find that skills cannot be identified, talent cannot be defined. Then you look at our curriculum, what we are taught in school. It simply doesn't set out to write and all that. So when we are talking about youth development and youth empowerment, it should first start with us. We have to know who we are. Like what knowledge are we promoting in the children at primary level. Then when we come to secondary school, with these career guidance classes, they are now diminished where you have to identify talent in people. That is no longer happening. So we need more. So these the Ministry of Education, they should come up with good policies to help us. To make this change. You should teach us to be employers, not like, so I'm going to school so that I can become and be employed. And here we are now, blaming the government, because there are no jobs. There's no, the government has come, the municipal government has come, we are already insulting them. There are no jobs. They promise jobs, but there are no jobs. That we insist for to the right information. So that's my contribution.
Have you heard that contribution?
Yes. Three things for me here. Number one, too many kids in class. I think that's an infrastructural challenge. 1, 2, it's also, especially now, it shows that many kids were unable to come to class, so now they've come. So to me, it's a good problem, as long as you have solutions for it. For instance, expand your capacities, and whether it's teachers, physical buildings, etc., that you can expand. But the second solution to that one is what I mentioned earlier, that competence-based education system, which is not about teaching but about learning, does not demand so much for a teacher to be speaking to so many, because the way the learning happens, it gives a lot of room for kids to teach themselves with a teacher only guiding them. So there is because we still have the old curriculum, I think it's more building infrastructure. Preparing them for jobs instead of, for instance, for entrepreneurship.
Preparing them for employment.
Yeah, instead of, say, entrepreneurship.
Teach them to employ.
Yeah, we need a curriculum that speaks to that. So again, it takes me back to the competence-based curriculum. So the government needs to have another curriculum. I know it takes time for government to review their curriculum. They have periods. But I think I haven't again checked when they last changed the curriculum. But from the pupils I know who go to school, it's still the old approach, so that needs to change. Career guidance, I think where government can come in policy-wise, especially to do with private colleges, is to give caps where you say, okay guys, we have enough people with these qualifications. We don't want any college anymore admitting students to study these areas. The areas where we need more where there's more employment are these ones. Because for private colleges, it's money. So if I go there, I want to be a teacher. They enroll me. Yet there are thousands of teachers who have no jobs. So we keep getting teachers who are graduating with no jobs. And then they are crying in the streets, employ us. But actually, the time they started studying to become teachers, there were no jobs already. So why did colleges admit them to do a course where they will never be employed? So then channel them into areas where we need those skills. Now, government, I think Ministry of Education, because the Ministry of Education still has authority over the entire education sector, whether private or public. So they should have that guidance where you say, guys, the way we are forecasting manpower needs, working as a government, you know, now Ministry of Manpower, whatever, these are the areas where we need people to be enrolled to study. These areas we have a glut. There are too many out there and there are no jobs.
Professor, let me ask you an hypothetical question.
Yes, sir.
But a realistic one.
Yes, sir.
If President HH asked you or nominated you to be Minister of Education, can you transform the education sector in Zambia?
Oh, okay. First, I will refuse. Second, no. Okay. Can the sector be transformed? Again, I said at the beginning that I am not privy. I don't have a lot of information on what the education sector has been doing in Zambia up to now. I have to confess that. I've looked at the youth policy. I haven't looked at the education sector, what they are doing. So some of the things that I've said, maybe they are already doing. I should have been aware because we had a huge conference in Kenya where I presented a keynote speech on the future of work and competence-based education. And I know that Zambia was not one of those that was doing this. That's the last, that was 2019. So if they are already on that, then I'm not aware. But is there a lot that they can do? Absolutely. And like I said, to me, the Ministry of Education and the education sector is basically, what can I say? They are key to the future. Because what we will be in a few years' time is what we are being told.
Will you change your confession from saying what they can do
to what we should do?
We should do
yes,
as a nation? Because you are part of this.
Absolutely.
System.
Completely. I changed that confession. Yes. Together with my ignorance of what the Ministry of Education has already been doing, and what can I say, the anecdotal evidence that I have with me, or the limited evidence I have, and well, I've talked to one or two teachers. Can I tell you what they told me? Okay. One teacher told me this. It was fascinating, and it was last week. She said, too many English teachers who sit in the staff room doing nothing because they've been sent to that school, and they only need a few of them. Corruption sent wrong teachers to some schools. Some departments have too many teachers, other departments have none. Mathematics teachers are lacking. Tough pupils with difficult Comboni culture. More than 100 pupils, no microphone to use. 14 classes, 2 teachers of business studies and ICT, 1 voluntary, 1 permanent and being transferred. Grade 9 are still doing grade 8 of business studies. Unlikely to complete the syllabus before exams. Failure due to too many pupils, lack of teachers, slow learners. Some cannot even copy things that are on the board in grade 9. Too many small private colleges all offering education, producing teachers and nurses who will not get jobs. This was one of the teachers who gave me this. So it tells me that there hasn't been change yet. So there's a lot that can change.
Let's pick up this call.
Yes.
I use your pen, sorry.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Pastor Moses Kirua.
Is that my doctor in Luansha?
Not at all. Not at all.
Oh, I thought it was Dr. Mukandawere, the cabinet viewer.
Not at all.
What's your name?
My name is Chumira Josephat from Chirabongwe.
Chumia?
Chumira Josephat.
Oh, Chiunda.
Chumbila.
Okay, Mr. Joshua, please go ahead. From Chilabombwe?
Yes.
Yes, from Chirabongwe.
Please
Chumira
go.
Josephat.
Joshua, speak to the nation.
Yes, I just want to commend you, Pastor Chirua, for that program.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank the Professor MUNKUMBA, how he's articulating the issues regarding the running of the government. I just want to ask one question to the pastor.
Yes, sir.
How about bringing the Minister of Youth and Development, Elvis Sinkandu, to that forum so that we can discuss with him and with the professor over the matter of the youth.
Good idea. Good idea.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, Joshua, I'm most grateful to God for your suggestion. The only limitation, thank you, Joshua. The only limitation, Professor, I have is that national matters only comes on a Monday.
Yes.
And I can only take one person, or we can take 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But this time, I wish I had met with Joshua and told him that I'm meeting Professor MUNKUMBA. But I've taken his sentiment seriously because these ministers, permanent secretaries, I have a bone to chew with them. You mean surely we can't transform this nation?
No, we can.
You know, I ask myself a lot of questions.
Okay.
Is it a matter of just saying I'm a minister, I'm an MP, when you have no idea of where you want to take Zambia? So these are some of the pains that are in my heart.
And to add to that, Pastor, there has to be, not sure exactly which ministry would, maybe community development or something, but creating a sense of patriotism in every Zambian where we are all not looking, say, to government to do things, but we all begin to take a collective ownership of the country, where you say, at my level, on my own, what is it I'm doing, or what is it that I will do to ensure I don't leave this country where I found it? Each person. Because I see, when you just have to go to social media, that you see a situation where perhaps the majority are seated like this, and they are watching things happening and saying, government promised this, and before this period, government should do this. So you want to ask yourself, so exactly who is government? Is government the politicians? Not necessarily. I think government on their own can't do much. They must do what the things they should do. If they are not doing, we should hold them accountable. But then it's the hands and feet are the citizens. So what are the citizens really doing to ensure, okay, how unhappy are the citizens, even with themselves, considering where the country is 50-something years after independence? What are you happy with where things are? Okay, if you are not happy, is it simply because governments have not done their part while you have done your part? And I tell you, if we were to share guilt, it would be fairly shared. You'll find that even the average citizen has not put in the maximum effort, except for few, to push the country forward. In fact, sometimes the biggest critics are the least contributors, which is rather sad. So I say this because if you go to Kenya, for instance, the work ethic of the average guy is out of this world. Absolutely. And here we have our own workers. And my goodness, I was watching Smata talking about his ducks, how he bought 65 ducks. He was talking about weekend farming versus telephone farming. So I bought 65 ducks. And after a few months, they had all disappeared with all kinds of stories. The eggs were eaten by snakes. They died. They replenished the stock. They disappeared. Now he's at a farm and he's seeing the ducks multiplying. And we've seen it in our own place. They can even sell seeds. You buy seeds to plant maize. They sell some of them. They will sell the fertilizer. So the attitude of an average Zambian is, if I'm an employee and this is not my business, quote unquote, the guy will steal you blind. Now you are asking yourself, if you kill this business, you are also jobless. What kind of mentality is this? So I said, if we are going to share guilt, we will all take a portion of the guilt of why Zambia is, after so many years, least developed, with 60% poor people, 45% stunted children, 35% of youth illiterate, and even the 65% probably half are functional illiterates. Why are we there after so many years? I think it's all of us. So I need to sit and be doing my bit, and then I can criticize government for not doing its bit. I can criticize the private sector for overcharging when they shouldn't even be overcharging. When the kwacha has appreciated a bit, I need to see some prices going down. Why aren't you doing that? So I can criticize them for failure because I'm doing my bit. And just comparing Zambian workers to, say, Kenyan workers
and
Ugandan workers, I would say, sorry, we are very far. In fact, I went pastor teaching from country to country, and every time I ask, guys, in the region, who are the hardest workers? Who are the laziest? And always I would keep quiet because my own country will be ranked very low in terms of productivity. So again, you can see that there is a lot we can do as citizens, a lot I can do personally as a citizen. And then I should be able to hold others accountable because I'm doing my bit.
But I can tell you, Professor, I have met people that are CAMNET viewers through and through.
Correct.
I think our minds are on a different trajectory
from the rest.
The rest. Because when you find Team CAMNET, wherever they are, it's been agriculture or there is this, I call it a family out there.
Yes.
Because we know that we were born for greatness. And we don't want to just wait for another 5 years. You know, right now, t-shirts na because the guys are employed, and those are waiting for another 5 years. You know, there is that generation also. Hello, good evening. Hello? Okay. Good evening, Pastor and Professor. I must confess that Professor is versed with wisdom and knowledge and is an asset to this nation. Wonderful discussion there. I'm a Zambian youth and wish to learn from old school Professor why such minds as professors understanding can't come on the table of discussion with government and discuss ways we can develop this nation and reduce the unemployment among us youths. This wisdom and knowledge in the professor should not go with his fresh, and he gets
back to the soil.
Professor, please find a way you can transmit this wisdom to us. I want to support this well-spoken professor. As a Zambian, we as Zambian have started focusing on family planning when our population is only 18 million plus compared to our neighbors. Is this good for the development? MC. You know, Professor, what he has said, sorry about this. You know what he has said about this? Someone said, Pastor, the growth of any country, this is one reason why you find I think it's Kalaluka who said here
Yes.
that developed countries like Holland,
Yeah.
America,
Yeah.
they would pay people to have more children.
Yes.
Because when you have more population, the bigger the population, the more growth economically. I don't know how that works, just like Nigeria. And this man is saying we are 18 million. We are already talking about family planning. What would you say to that? And somebody said, don't go with those brains. There's a youth there
to the
who
soil.
says, don't go to the grave with that kind of
I will not. Two things. The push for family planning, I think, is in relation to your carrying capacity at any one point. So there's that side that, look, if with 18 million you don't even have enough hospital beds, you don't have enough ICU beds, you don't have enough classrooms, you know, so they're like, so can you manage your population because you are not able to carry it now? That's the side. Then the side of the bigger the population, the bigger the market. It also has credence with a condition. If there is a bigger population of poor people, it's just a problem. But if it's a bigger population and you're empowering them, then of course you are creating a market, many mouths to feed, bodies to dress, and so on and so forth. So then that gives rise to bigger businesses. So both sides, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not an either-or. Both sides have merits. It's good. I mean, look at Dubai. There are 2 million people, but they are now very rich. Qatar, small population, very rich. What they've done is to say, look, this population, we can never have a big market on our own. So they come and attract all of us to go there, and we become their population because we take money there. So because they know they are very, very small as a country. So there are ways to do this. I think the push for family planning is at a personal level. If you have 20 children, are you able to feed them and dress them and check medicines and take them to school? If you can't, then maybe you need to be careful about how many you produce, and so on and so forth.
Let's take some more questions, Professor.
Yes.
The text messages, Mr. Director, all governments have failed to deal with the social media foolishness. Too much insults. Can't ZICTA deal with some of these? They are really a drawback. This is Charlie from Kasama.
But I personally, I also have been wondering why it has even gone on for so long. Because, I mean, there are many countries where you can't see some things we see here without being taken into court. Absolutely, because...
But what would you do, Professor, when you have foolishness of pastors also from Nigeria posting things, insulting the presidency, only here in Zambia? That's where it happens.
It's
a lot of foolishness has come from the pulpit, from...
There's a lot, but he's right about ZICTA. I think there is... think about people posting accident victims. The relatives don't even know. And the guy is there taking pictures and post them online. You can't. Have you ever seen an American doing that?
No.
Never. We've never seen an American dead online. Never. Not even when they were in war at war in Iraq. We never saw a single dead American, except when they are carrying a coffin to the plane and it's draped in a flag. That's the only thing we saw. Never a body. For us here, an accident, mangled bodies, relatives don't know. Someone is busy taking pictures and sending them online. So you are like, why do we allow such garbage? Yet on TV you will say this is 18 plus, so children shouldn't watch. What about those gruesome pictures that they are showing? That's what cheapens life already. Death becomes, it's nothing. So a kid will pick up a knife and knife its sibling because it's been seeing death all the time online. No control. We need a law and serious enforcement of what goes even on social media. So that misinformation and insults and intimidation. I saw Dr. Nevas Mumba wrote something on social media. And some chap comes and writes such an abusive note to Dr. Nevas Mumba. I almost wrote, I just held myself back. Then I realized, no, the country is allowing too much craziness on social media.
But you know what that means?
Yes.
It tells you that the country is accommodating a lot of failures.
Indeed.
Who have nothing to do.
And so they are
all they can do is just social media.
Yeah, they are keyboard warriors on steroids. They will sit there and type away. And the person, this is a young person, and he's writing to an older guy with so much experience, so much wisdom, but what he has written, you are a failure. You should go back to the pulpit. Who put you in a position where you will tell who should be in the pulpit and who shouldn't? And I'm just reading and I'm like, no. We need control on what gets posted against others.
One man, Professor, this is just on a lighter note. Yes. One man wrote a stink about my wife and I and Camnet. Yes. He says, Pastor Chuba is useless. He's good for nothing. In the meantime, he's saying he's useless. He's watching my TV.
No, actually, if you go to the profile, you'll be shocked who is writing. Even some youth who's jobless is...
Somebody is not even useful to this nation, but is calling somebody who is useful. This is why I don't watch media. Even social media, even the foolishness that goes on there, I don't have the grace, Professor, because like I said, my mind was born for greatness.
The only good thing, Pastor, the good thing is that it is helping us to see. It's like a mirror. It's helping us to see where we are at as a nation. And therefore what needs to be done to correct, because those things would still be in the hearts of those people, social media or not. It's just that there's a platform where we can say, we have candidates of a certain place still walking.
Speaking as a pastor, Professor,
yes,
you realize the Bible says, be careful of what you hear.
Oh yeah, true.
Be careful of what you hear.
Yeah, true.
And what you allow to come through your mind and what you see has the potential to change your character.
Oh, yes.
So like my wife and I and our children, we have trained them to get the stuff, something good.
Yes.
Don't waste time. You know, the difference between a raven and an eagle, Professor, is their diet.
What they feed on.
What they feed on. An eagle doesn't feed on something that is dead, but a raven goes for that.
Scavenger.
You see, so the things that you feed on with your spirit, it dictates, and you become who you are.
No, Pastor, what you mentioned the word character, and I had noted some place that for the youths, and it's very important what you said for the youths, is we observe, so they should observe, which means you see, you hear, and what you see and hear, which is what you are feeding on, affects your thinking, your thoughts, which affects your actions, which affects your habits, which builds your character.
Say that again.
Yes, it is what you see and what you hear, which affect your thinking, what you think about, which will affect what you do, your actions, which creates your habits, which creates your character. So it is from you're always watching nonsense. You begin to think nonsense. You begin to act nonsense. You have a habit of nonsense, character of nonsense. You see the right things, you feed on the right food.
Let's pick up this caller. Hello, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Naya.
Permanently blessed. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
Yes, I just want to say, why is it that failing to block some Facebook accounts to those people always using social media?
You are a little bit too fast for my ears. Speak slowly, let me hear. What is your name?
Pardon?
What is your name?
Oh, it's Gibson Lenga calling from Cabo.
Okay, Mr. Mlenga, and what was your question?
Yeah, my question is about why Victor can block those Facebook accounts to those people who use social media.
That's a good question. Next time I'll look up for a Zicta man to come and answer that. Because Professor and I can't answer. We'll call upon Zicta. Thank you, Mr. Mlenga. You see, these are the normal minds we have in Zambia. They may not find the platform, Professor.
Correct.
I know what I'm talking about. There are these minds who are born like somebody who said, where is Zicta? You know, these minds, when you put them together, correct, Professor, we can change the nation. You know, there are people who are concerned.
Yes, I agree. It's long overdue, really. It's long overdue to have a form of enforcement Because youngsters are reading these things, they see adults insulting each other. How do you expect now the youngsters to respect elders? Because you're already undermining them. They are completely losing faith in their parents, because they see parents calling each other names on social media. I think the social media can be a very powerful platform for education, for passing on wisdom and knowledge to the younger people, for role modeling. It can be a powerful tool for mentoring. Because I see some people who go on Facebook and the rest of other media, and they are putting a lot of useful things there. And young people can read and they are learning. It's a classroom. But when you have a lot of rubbish also coming there, then it pollutes. So you're creating the wrong kind of citizen. And the youth policy says we want patriotic youths. How do you have
skilled youth?
Exactly, skilled. How do you have patriotic youths when they are seeing their adults insulting others, calling others failures? Even the word failure is so misapplied. You know, you are a failure because you tried this, it didn't work. Come on. The best successful people are people who have failed the most, because they tried this, they persisted, and what came out was amazing. But if you say, because you tried twice and you failed, you are a failure, then it means if you build a ship or a boat, it should remain in the harbor. It should never go out to sea. If you buy a car, you should park it in the garage. You should never go out on the road because there's potential for accidents. We don't do that. If you build a plane, you should park it at the airport because there's probability of dropping from the sky. We don't do that. We go out there with all those things. That's what success is. You swim upstream. But I read a lot of, you are a failure. You are a failure. Failure. The person being called a failure has achieved so much.
I'm telling you.
But you are a failure. Then you go to the profile of the guy writing. So, but then the youths are reading that, and it's not good food for their minds.
Professor, let's take 5 text messages.
All right.
And after that, you can respond to those that will come.
Yes, please.
And then you say your last words. I wish we could have more time than this. Mr. Director, give us the 5 text messages. Good evening, Pastor Chiluba and Professor. I love the program, Professor. I think, is it right in Zambia? Is right in Zambia we don't know where money is? All we think about our children is working for someone in an office. Pastor Chiluba brought avocado and other million-dollar programs which many youths can't see. We can do better. We just need to be practical. This is Lochi Henry in MUNKUMBA. Oh, MUNKUMBA. This is wonderful. Lochi, thank you for watching. Take note of that. Is it here in Zambia where we don't just see money? Pastor Chiluba and the Kamne TV, we love you. Thank you so much. And we clearly appreciate your effort for having the interest of the youths at heart. My question is, does the professor train youths who are zealous in entrepreneurship? And if so, kindly give us more information. This is Ephraim Chisanga from Kitwe. Do you train the youths? You answer that, and we'll also give them your contact later. Pastor, I'm enjoying your program. Please continue bringing such people so that the youths can be motivated. This is Kabungu from Lusaka. Thank you so much. The last 2 were articulated citizenry issues. Zambia, our country, need citizens like you. This is Derek K. in Kitwe. And our last text message says, Pastor Chiluba, I suggest that you personally introduce the professor to the president for our country, for our country's sake. That one is an asset for the country. This is Eofasia Mwela. Beginning with this one, he says, I should introduce you to the president.
That is yours.
I need to introduce myself also to the president. Mwela, I hear you. One reason I can introduce, like I've brought this professor here, I can tell you, is a reservoir of knowledge. He has what it takes. As you heard him sitting on faculties in Holland, Sweden, he has been flying around Africa, and Zambia doesn't know it. Did you know that at one time when when my wife and I came from your home some years ago,
Yes, that was in Tanzania.
When
or
we
Kenya?
came to visit you with
Nairobi.
my family in Arusha.
Arusha, yes. That time, yes.
Yeah, when I came back,
Yes.
I brought your contact to President Chilwa.
Oh, that time.
You remember?
Yeah.
I said, sir, we have got some professors. We've got Zambians who can help you. But like I said, probably I should teach you some political songs, because when you dance and Tanzania says, professors become a politician. No, but thank you for Mwila. Answer those other.
Two.
Yeah.
The last one. Do I train youths? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I do train entrepreneurship skills. For youths, now you said you train youths, it could be, is it pro bono, meaning is it for free, or do you have funders who can fund? I think my advice would be, if a good number of youths came together, say we need this course, and it's a serious number, maybe 20 plus, 30,
and
40, 50.
And they find people who can fund.
Well, if they can, wonderful. If they don't, then, but we have those numbers, we could probably write to some funders like USAID and say, look, we have this number. We motivate a paper that we have this number. They are passionate. They want this kind of thing. We need assistance. Sometimes you'll be shocked that money is there. What it needs is a plan, a motivation, a paper, a concept note that says, this is what we want to do. These are the outcomes. This is how we shall monitor whether the outcomes happen. And the funding can be found. And this is why when they talk of cooperatives and youths coming together, I hope that's part of it. Because when youths come together, they cluster. It's easy then to find help for them. But when they're scattered, one is impractical. So if this gentleman can come together with friends, you say we are so many and we need mentorship. We could work together, and then we write it to some funders, see if they can't fund that kind of training. Are we the only country that doesn't see money? I think mindset change on wealth creation is absolutely crucial. It's not by accident that Zambians, including the youth, think only of jobs, and their parents think only of jobs. It's in our history. Pastor, during colonial times, how villagers were moved from the villages to the mines. When the colonial guys introduced the poll tax, the hut tax, which could only be paid per household in cash. And villagers did not have cash. So they had to go to work to the mines. It was a way of finding cheap labor. So everyone left the villages for the mines. And we started we became a job-seeking community. And that mentality has lasted for years and years. That's why job, career job, instead of go start a business. But the mindset can be changed. That money, there's less money in jobs and more money in entrepreneurship. It is true that not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Because if everyone was an entrepreneur, then who is going to be an employee? So there will be employees. You just need to become a good employee, so you also contribute to building the economy. But those who feel, I think I can do entrepreneurship, they should go into entrepreneurship. That's a mindset change. That's where the money is. And the parents can help their children. So you are not always pushing kids, no, you be a nurse. No, yes, we need all these people. But ask the child, what is your interest? If he says, me, I want to, and it looks like they want to run their own thing, let them go there. Even after they graduate, they can get a job, but only to get discipline, and then they go on into the entrepreneurship.
There are a lot of boys and girls who have been left on the Black Mountain in Kitwe. If we put up a seminar for Copper Belt,
yes,
we put up this, can you go and train the
Absolutely,
youth?
Pastor.
Because I'm very passionate professor.
Yes.
I want you to know,
yes,
that behind me,
yes,
I think I rate Zambians to be some of the best human beings living.
True.
And we have the potential.
Yes.
But you see, history and society
Yes.
has written something
Yes.
bad
Yes.
on us.
Yes, and it's not been helpful.
Yeah. This is why, with a little effort, my wife and I can say, okay, let's travel to Kitwe. And meet all the boys on the Copper Belt and girls, and push them to something
Pastor, there is a lot that we can do. Even just, first of all, to talk to them at a personal level. I mean, as a group, but you teach them at life skills. Then you move to business skills. Absolutely. There's a lot that can be. And you're right about saying Zambians, because everybody who comes to Zambia, they come back. Even in Nairobi, people used to come back and say, you Zambians, you're so friendly. I was so at peace in that country. They almost want to come back. So this peacefulness, this coexistence, the ability to welcome others is unique here in this country. It's rarely found anywhere else. Everywhere else you are looking over your shoulder. You are never sure whether you are safe. But here, people can walk around really, really safe and at home. That's an asset on its own. And you are right about history and culture and everything, having turned our minds away from where it matters. But again, that's something that can be reversed. It goes back to information, knowledge, so the communication thing. Because when you get information, it becomes knowledge. And when you use knowledge, it becomes experience, skills. When you use those a lot, it becomes competence. Competence becomes wisdom. So it can be rebuilt completely. And when we say transformation, it means we can change our mindsets. We already have a foundation which is good, a peaceful country, very welcoming and hospitable people. That's a huge asset because we can coexist. It's just politics that has been trying to divide us here and there, unfortunately, and it's politicians who have not helped us there in that corner. If politicians can also, again on social media, avoid inflammatory language and begin to use decorum and dignity, Zambia is a peaceful country. In fact, when you see it, there's tension. It's just on social media, and guys pushing this tension thing. But when you go into compounds and talk to people, Zambians are... Pastor, we were in Chongwe yesterday and day before, we were stuck there. And we brought villagers together to help us out in the farm. And you can see the spirit of camaraderie there. We even cooked food and everyone sat to eat. You don't find that in many countries. Zambians are like one huge family, which means it's not difficult to plant the right seeds. And within a few years, you can have a totally different country. I admire Singapore, I admire all these countries. They worked on their culture and mindsets, and we can do that.
Professor,
and so Black Mountain, yes, Pastor.
You must forgive my passion for this nation. I wish I could be in a position where I can call the Zambians and say, let's meet here and have the indaba for the
conversation.
Nation.
Yes.
I'm telling you, I wish I could be in that position.
No, Pastor, we need to do that. We need an indaba. Private sector needs to do it, NGOs or civil society needs to do it, churches, then government. We need many indabas, and we need a conversation ongoing, challenging ourselves on our culture, mindsets, the way we behave, the way we act. We have not done that. And we started drifting, and we continued, and there was no arresting of that. So we need a lot of conversations at different levels, with government coming in now perhaps as a supra one. So we can have chiefs having an indaba with their subjects, and then chiefs with many subjects. I can say a lot, Pastor, about government, for instance, setting up think tanks. So you can have a supra think tank, and then many think tanks that are sectoral. So we can go by sector, we can go cross-sector, then we can have a supra think tank feeding into cabinet. Ideas. So the supra one picks from these other sub-think tanks and feeds into cabinet. So when cabinet sits to decide, they are used thoroughly cooked information. It has gone through all these levels, and then they've picked and prioritized what cabinet should focus on. More or less working in parallel with ministries themselves. That's how Singapore did it.
Professor, we are into news time. May God help my wife and I to just be a little bit of a blessing to this nation.
Yes,
but
sir.
I believe we shall change.
Amen.
We
Pastor.
will change.
I
This
agree.
nation, we will go to another level.
I agree.
You
I
know.
agree.
Thank you for coming, Professor.
Thank you very much, Pastor. I appreciate it.
And you should greet your wife, Catherine.
I will do that.
And my boys.
I will do that.
And those of you that are watching this broadcast, dear Camnet TV viewers, you want to get in touch with the professor. I won't give you his mobile number, but contact Camnet TV. if you want your company to be trained, the bank, some of you are government officials and you are listening, this man is an asset. He can help us turn this economy around. The people you hire probably from the UK, from what, they were in the same class, probably when he leaves from here and is going to Holland, is teaching the same people you hire to come and teach us. Zambia, we have assets in this nation. On behalf of my wife, Pastor Victoria, the CEO of this great television station, on behalf of the young men and young women who are making this station great, and on behalf of the Healing Word Ministries International, the church that my wife and I pastors, and of course you, the CamNet TV viewers, listen, you were born for greatness. This nation, we will change it. With your commitment, your belief, Zambia is a great nation. Keep watching CamNet TV. Until we meet again, remember that CamNet TV is not just another channel. Bye-bye.
Bye.